You're listening to We Deepen Media.
Big shout out to Indy Rishi, host of the Political Hope podcast on the We Deepen Network. Indy's most recent episode 36, titled Transcendent Politics, has had thousands of plays within its first week, making it one of We Deepen's top-rated shows. The episode features quintessential philosopher Charles Eisenstein, author of The Coronation, Sacred Economics, The More Beautiful World Our Hearts Know Is Possible, and The Agent of Humanity. This episode is a personal favorite of mine. I've been a fan of Charles Eisenstein's work since discovering it in 2014. He eloquently mixes politics and spirituality with a focus on serving love into the world. Find Political Hope at WeDeepen.com or search for it now in your podcast app. Hit the subscribe or follow button and check it out after you listen to this episode of Deepen with Christina. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Deepen with Christina. I'm your host, Christina Weber, founder of We Deepen, Feminine Weapon, and also a certified professional love coach for people who want to have a spiritual dating journey, as well as deepen their connection with a significant other. I do intimacy coaching, love coaching, relationship coaching, dating coaching, and newly matchmaking, which we're going to talk a little bit about today, possibly because I just came out of a 5-day water fast. It's actually a 9-day program. And this is a follow-up from the last episode, which was episode 42. So this is 42 part 2. And that last episode being cord cutting and water fasting to heal from a breakup. Because this is now the 4th podcast that I've mentioned the breakup. However, I've cut the cords, and I don't even think we're going to talk much about that today because I'm feeling that has been let go. Now, before we get into it, if you enjoy this podcast, please do like, follow, subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to. Rate it. Spotify, you can go into rate the podcast. And if you're listening on iTunes, please do leave a comment. It helps other people to find the podcast. It supports me. And also, if you enjoy it as well, please share it with friends. Let's get this information out and have more people join us inside of the We Deepen network. As you know, I'm founder of We Deepen, WeDeepen.com. We are a network of social and transformational experiences that help people to have more meaningful, loving relationships. We have a new calendar system, and actually not only is it a calendar system, it's a community system. So if you go to WeDeepen.com, click on the calendar, and you can sign up, create a profile, and RSVP to experiences, and then buy your tickets with a special exclusive We Deepen member only promo code. And there's going to be more spaces built within that system. One of them potentially being about water fasting. I am feeling renewed and excited. You know, part of the reason why I wanted to do this water fast is because I am facilitating with Ken Page, the founder of Deeper Dating. He's a psychotherapist. He's amazing. I would say, I don't know if he'd mind me saying this, but he's one of our elders. He had started doing dating events in New York City in 2004 for the LGBT community. So Ken and I are going to be at the biohacking conference, Dave Asbury's 8th annual biohacking conference, September 15th through the 17th. And on that Friday night, the night of September 16th, we will be leading a dating experience for 200 of the 2,000 attendees. How revolutionary. I think it's revolutionary that a dating experience is being invited to a professional event. Dave Asbury thought of this and reached out. And so I'm excited. We're going to be extracting activities from America's Hottest Dating Experiences, Hum Hum, Conscious Dating Salon, Tantra Speed Date, and Deeper Dating, and sprinkling our own little magic. You're going to get a talk from Ken Page, who's going to be on a future podcast. Can't wait for you to meet him. So check out that the Biohacking Conference is on WeDeepen.com on that calendar. So you can register through there. Also get a special We Deepen promo code. I'm also super excited of Unleash is coming up. It's a 3-day guided transformational dance journey happening here. When I say here, because I'm in Austin, Texas, it's happening in Austin, Texas, the week after September 23rd through the 25th. And it's one of my favorite. We camp out together and we dance every night. It's a sober event. How amazing is it to go and be in a sober event with this one is more intimate than the Biohacking Conference, which has 2,000 people. This is 200 people. And it's so much fun. Yadi Iksa guides. She's one of the greatest transformational coaches. So definitely check that out. You'll see also on the calendar lots of Tantra Speed Dates and much, much more. Again, WeDeepen.com. Check out that calendar. So let's get into today. I am back at Maesyns place here in Austin, Texas. And I have completed a 5-day water fast. The water fast included 30 hours, not 30 days, 30 hours of dry fasting. There was also 3 pre-days to prepare my body going into it and 3 days after to prepare my body coming out of it. You know, that first day, day 1 is salads, light food, vegetables. Day 2 is a super delicious, special, raw detox soup made by Maesyn. It's amazing. One of my housemates in the Alpaca Playhouse tasted it today and was like, whoa, it's so good. And then day 3, before I entered into the water fast, I did juiced watermelon. So all day, just one whole organic juiced watermelon. And I came out the same way. I came out with the first day of full watermelon. So that was 2 days ago for me. And today was the soup day. And tomorrow will be it's the same soup I did. And tomorrow will be the salads. And also because I got to come to Maesyn's place, it included... we did a little spa evening together and she gave me all types of tinctures and protocols and an Epsom salt bath with a bunch of toys. And I'll say toys. There's so many toys in my bathtub. We'll get into the toys in a bit. So but I was thinking, as I came here yesterday to be with you to end the fast, I was just so excited because as a child, I used to go play with my girlfriends and we'd play Barbies or dolls or house or hide and seek or games. And it was like 2 girls playing with intention. And I loved that experience with you. I am so grateful to have you guide me through that experience. Now, as you know, one of the reasons that I did it was because I was healing from a breakup. And I also, even before that relationship ended, my body was craving some type of change. I'd been living in Maryland and surrounding myself with, my father he likes to drink his Jack and to have fine wines, and I like to spend time with him. So I was indulging in fine wines and fancy restaurants, and I could feel it in my body. Throughout my adult life, I'm 5'4", and throughout my adult life, I've ranged between 110 to 120. And I was at the high end. I was at 120, 121 when I went into this. And now I've lost 10 pounds. So I'm at that 110. My body feels great. I feel light. I feel clear-headed. Throughout the journey, there was lots of Maesyn protocols that went along with it. So I'll give you some of the things that I did, and then I'm going to bring Maesyn into this. I this is her protocol. And we'll go into some of the before stuff. I'll have Maesyn talk about how I prepped my body for it. However, when I was on it, I was doing tongue scraping, oil pulling, legs up the wall, fascia blasting, which I had never heard of fascia blasting. It essentially is this, Ashley Black created this gadget that you use oil in this gadget and you can release the cellulite from your body. I did some foam rolling. I did 1 colon hydrotherapy. I was meditating, doing breath work. I did an apple cider vinegar mud facial mask. I was doing facial cupping, tarot card reading, journaling, using my fist to punch my back. So my kidneys, Qigong, that was Qigong. Okay. I was doing some Qigong with my back and trampoline jumping, sunbathing. I did the Epsom sea salt bath here yesterday with her. And I also, in Maesyn's protocol, it has, consume, if you're going to consume any type of content, consume some spiritual content. So I watched the abundance codes on the Gaia Network one night as I was fascia blasting. And I will say that it was intensive. There was a lot to do. And I think because you're eliminating food, you still have time. So I was still able to be productive I'm in school, I'm finishing up school. So I'm at that last run. So I was able to get some schoolwork done, able to get some work done. And I felt great through it. And I felt wonderful as I ended it. So Maesyn, as I first thank you from the bottom of my heart and soul to give me that experience. It was such a bonding, to have that bonding phase with you, and also your genius, and your humbleness around your genius. You know so much about food. I said this last week, you know more about food. And also too, because We Deepen we are a relationship platform. I feel, it's nice when you go out in the world and you're currently single to feel good about yourself. You're more inclined to connect with other human beings when you feel good about who you are. And I feel more like myself than I did before doing this podcast. Thank you, Maesyn, for being here. And I'm so excited to get deeper into water fasting and share more about that experience with anyone who's listening.
I want to reflect that you look fucking amazeballs. Christina is always smoking hot, as those of you who know her can attest. But when we first did our initial podcast over a week ago, she was just looking a little bit puffy and maybe a little, like, I could see the years on you. And you have stripped away like 5-10 years. You look glowing, radiant, childlike. Your skin is, as I promised, it's like smooth as a baby's ass. And you, like, all the puffiness is gone from your body and your face, and you just look radiant and phenomenal. And that's a reflection of like the hard work that you did on every level of mind, body, heart, spirit, soul. And right now I've got her on my Parasite zapper. Every time she comes over, I'm like, okay, now you're going to inhale and nebulize colloidal silver into your lungs and hold that in your lungs and do breath work. And, anyway, and for the record, Christina said something about we did a bath last night. She did a bath last night. I have strong boundaries of respectful, appropriate behavior, but I prepared for her a lovely Epsom salt bath, and I have like gua sha tools and face massagers and cupping tools and crystals.
These are the toys.
Yes, the toys. They are just really tools for self-care. So wanting Christina to really take the time, because she works so hard all the time. She's like the hardest worker I know. She's so entrepreneurial. And one of my goals as her cheerleader and support system during this was to get her to like dedicate energy to self-care. And every day we would check in throughout the day. I'd be like, what have you done so far? Good job. Try this. Maybe add this in today. If we'd had more time and maybe more financial fluidity, I would have suggested some acupuncture, some things like that. But as it was, it was like pretty budget friendly, and you still accomplished so much. And the one thing that I neglected to mention last time that I wanted to be sure to say was when we were discussing the lymphatic system and why so many of these protocols focus around supporting the lymphatic. The reason for that, which I also had not explained to Christina, was that like your circulatory system has your heart as a pump. I mentioned that last time. But your lymphatic system does not have a pump. And we were discussing if it's like a design flaw in the body. I mean, I trust that everything is as it's meant to be, but certainly our lymphatic system has no pump that helps to move that sewage system out to the organs of elimination. So that's why we do all the things to support it, like the body brushing and the inversion therapy and the qigong bouncing and the pounding on our kidneys, etc. And I would love to hear like just an overall description of your experience.
It was, it was one of those experiences. I want to use the word fascinating to witness myself going through that. I didn't find much of it, quote unquote, hard. Although there was challenging moments. I'll speak to the challenging moment first. I did 30 hours of dry fasting, and that was the center point. And everything was fine. And towards the end of that day, because I started that dry fasting, it was initially supposed to be 24 hours. But then when you start, you're like, oh, maybe I can go a little bit further. So I started the dry fast at 5 p.m. on a Friday. And the idea was, okay, if I start at 5 p.m. on Friday, then I finish at 5 p.m. on a Saturday, so I can still have some water before I go to bed. However, once you got there, I wanted to then extend it to the morning. Like, why not just wait until you get to the next morning? However, I probably maybe early on, maybe within the first 10 hours into it. So I did 30, so 10 hours into it, from my hips to my knees began to feel really achy. And that was challenging for me. And essentially, I pulled myself off of the dry fast at hour 30 because I couldn't take it anymore. There was a time I felt, I was running through my brain of, oh my God, this pain, this could be what childbirth is like. Or this is when I want to take an aspirin and I never take aspirin. And, oh, if I was in a hospital, they would hook me to an IV. This is the time you want to be hooked to an IV where they're pumping the painkillers inside of you. So it was challenging. And however, I found ways to cope with it. When I'd walk around, it was fine. But when I'd lay in the bed is when it would really sneak up and hurt me, which laying in the bed, that's when I did pull myself up. That was 11 o'clock at night. And I was like, I just want to go to sleep. So anytime that you would lay and rest, which is what you at times want to do on a dry fast, you don't want to be walking around the entire time, that would show up for me. And that was challenging. Now, when I did pull myself off of it and start drinking water, I've never used trace minerals before. And I added the trace minerals, which have magnesium and potassium, and that was working. That and foam rolling was alleviating the achiness. And by the next day after I'd started drinking the water plus the trace minerals and then adding additional potassium, it went away. And I learned through that, having that experience, that my body was low or deficient in magnesium and potassium. Otherwise, if I hadn't had that experience, I would never know. So I got to be more in tune with what was going on. I also had, this thing with my mouth that had been bothering me for some time. I had these teeth indents on my tongue and a white line in my mouth that where my teeth are that had shown up. I had been noticing it for the past few months, and only yesterday I looked inside of my mouth, and it was around the time the day before I was like, oh my God, I think I have oral cancer. And then I look up to today, and it's healing. It's almost gone. So to see how my body was able to heal itself throughout this journey. It also, I mentioned the focus. We deepen as an entrepreneur, and this podcast does follow my entrepreneur journey. We went back to our infancy. We had to pivot during COVID, and then I had to seek new tech products. I'm a non-tech founder. However, I can piece together pre-existing technology. And so I have been in the deep bootstrapping phase. Again, I was in the bootstrapping phase for years before COVID happened. And then we raised a round of funding. We got an office. I had a team of 8. Everything was going well. And then the COVID bomb happened. And I haven't gotten us... I had moments at the top of the year when we did Relate Fest. I've had the financials come in. I mean, actually, because I like to be fully transparent, we deepen in the first 3 months of this year. We had generated revenues of $40,000, but then they were, dispersed to, pay those involved with the festival or the event. And we also had Feminine Weapon Day run through us. And over recent months while I was in school and entertaining this new relationship and rebuilding our tech stack, the finances depleted. And so I have, in the bootstrap mode, you also kind of go into survival mode. And during this cleanse, I've been racking my brain. How do I get out of this? And what's been seeding for some time as I'm focused on coaching is this matchmaking and pairing coaching with matchmaking. So that came really strong to me with the knowingness that we can succeed at that. Like, we have a huge network. I've lived in, across New York City to Los Angeles to Miami to Austin. I know a ton of people, and pairing that with, and so I'm now, what came through to me is to double down on that. I'd let go of, today it's actually to really, some of the thoughts of the ex came through like at moments, but it's really rare. And I also want to add in that during this cleanse, I deleted Facebook from my phone and I deleted Instagram from my phone. And I noticed my time at sometimes I would, scroll through the phone to be like, where is those apps? Kind of that habit of that addiction. And now I'm starting to download them back because, hey, I need to be there too. I need to share about this podcast there and about the events that we support and all the things to be there. And so now coming back. So those are some of the breaks. But I'll say is today of coming out of it, there's a little bit of me that doesn't want to, that actually wants to stay in it. Because when you don't have to think about food, life is a little bit easier. It's less to do.
Yeah, you do spend a lot of time every day preparing food, thinking about what you're going to eat. It's like a mental energy as well as like a physical time consuming thing. I always feel that way when I'm, sometimes my body's just done, but like, I think I told you earlier that a joke with my friends used to be like, oh, what cleanse is Maesyn on today? Just because for like a decade, I was constantly experimenting. And I've reached a point now where I'm like way more mellow about it. And I'm like, I still do cleanses, but my body will tell me, like, I'm so in tune with my body that like, I'll start losing my appetite and I'll start losing my hunger for food. And I'll be like, oh, I guess my body's just moving into a cleanse now. But if I need nutrients and I'm not in a phase where cleansing is appropriate, I won't feel called to stop eating. So like, it's good to like start with the seasons or start with some kind of like regimen that you're committed to, but eventually your body just starts communicating and you just listen and you know when it's time.
Yeah, knowing when it's time. Maesyn, what would you say to somebody who claims fasting, water fasting, dry fasting is unhealthy?
I would say, show me your Nobel Prize, because there's literally an award-winning scientist who won a Nobel Prize for discovering autophagy, or maybe it's pronounced autophagy. I'm actually not sure. But cellular self-eating, like we spoke about, like there's literally an award-winning scientist who has won a Nobel Prize for proving unequivocally that fasting is amazing for the body. On top of all the anecdotal evidence, on top of all of the, every religion throughout time talking about water fasting as a method for spiritual illumination as well as physical healing. And usually the people who are afraid of water fasting have never done it, or they've done like I shouldn't say unintelligent, but I know people who've done like a really poorly executed water fast, or like gone way too long and they didn't ease into it and they didn't ease out of it and they didn't support their organs along the way and they didn't know how to do it right. So then their perspective is contaminated. And a lot of times it comes from fear or ignorance, honestly. So yeah, I always say fasting brings up the same type of people that like to debate about politics and religion, where they just want to fucking argue and they don't have any, I swear to God, most of these people, they give examples of like, oh, I know people that didn't, and I'm always like, yeah, well, prove it. I know people that it worked for. Like, where's your fucking Nobel Prize,
I think it's also important to mention that when I water fasted, I didn't use normal water. I didn't use water from a Brita or a filtered water system in my house or coming from the faucet. You had suggested this Alive water here in Austin that I used. So I also going into it, and when I was researching water fasting, I didn't really see that was a thing that people were stamping into or saying like, hey, don't just do this with any water. Can you speak to a little bit of the importance of the brand or type of water that you're using?
Sure. I mean, I personally have only drunk spring water for the last 10, 15 years, and I like to get it delivered in glass jars. So to me, like I wouldn't put filtered tap water in my body, period. And I think cleansing with that is a bad idea. Personally, some people like the Kangen machine. To me, no matter how good of a filter it is, it's still tap water that was coming out of a toilet somewhere through a filtration plant and now is coming out of the tap. Even if it's going through a good filter, it still has not been in contact with the earth. So for me, spring water is important. Some people subscribe to the philosophy of using distilled water, but most people buy their distilled water out of plastic jugs, which to me is also not cleansing. You're getting all the estrogenics and the nasty plastics in your water. So even if it's distilled, so like if you bought a distiller, I've actually thought about buying my own distiller and experimenting with fasting with distilled water. So then there's like no minerals in it at all. But my body personally, just sensibly, for my sense of logic, I feel like I only want to put water into my body that has been in contact with the earth. And Alive water is delivered in beautiful glass jars with geometry on them. And it's actually it's like living water, like freshly harvested. So that was what I recommended.
Yeah. Throughout this process, I learned that there's so much that I don't know. Prior to this, I never had a conversation about the lymphatic system. I have a lot of the things that Maesyn knows. I don't know. So it's actually, it's coming to me right now. And I was just listening to Indy Reishi's Political Hope podcast, his episode with Charles Eisenstein. And they were talking about how, in a society that is working in a way that is fulfilling to the people that are part of it, it's that they actually have to need each other. and they have to care about the well-being of the others. If one person has misfortune, they all have misfortune, and they will all support the misfortune of the one person in the community. And I see how your zone of genius is so important for society. And what I also really appreciate about it is I don't have to know it all. Like we get to go to the people around us who do, and we're all on some type of spectrum of awareness of what we know about food and our systems. And this is something that wasn't taught to us in our educational curriculums. There's, as Maesyn even shared in the last episode, why she is uninterested in labeling herself as an expert, because the scientific evidence continues to change. There's just new developments happening all of the time. And so, yeah, it also...
And because I'm literally not an expert. Like literally, I wanted to, what I would feel comfortable doing would be telling you my teachers and the people that I've studied and listened to hours and hundreds of hours of podcasts from. So like I started off listening to Dr. Robert Kassar a lot, and he talks about internal terrain modification, which is like making your internal terrain an inhospitable place for parasites to live. And parasite cleansing is a whole other wormhole we haven't gone down yet, where it's like important to first do like a thorough intestinal cleanse and a thorough liver cleanse and a thorough kidney cleanse and then do a parasite cleanse. And I've done those before, but I didn't even want to bring that up to you because it's such a whole deep wormhole. But then other people that I've learned from who speak quite a bit about this, who are literally like Harvard professors, these are the people to go to for actual data. I am not that. Like David Sinclair, Rhonda Patrick, Andrew Huberman does a lot of lifestyle stuff. He talks a lot about fasting. He's the head of neurobiology research at Stanford. He has a podcast. I listen obsessively. Anything he does. I have like such a brain crush on him. And then like Dr. Robert Morse talks a lot about fruitarianism and cleansing. Dr. Eric Berg, he's kind of he kind of regurgitates also, but he does a really good job of like disseminating information intelligently. He talks about fasting. Jason Kung, I don't resonate as much with him, but he is a doctor who his whole message is fasting. Thomas DeLauer talks about fasting. So those are some people where I would say, if anyone listening is curious, like, please don't look to me for information, like look to the actual experts.
Yes, and I sometimes think that the best person to go to is one who curates the information, because they're not taking from one particular source. It's sort of like I always dream of well, even two of you can see what I'm doing with We Deepen. This idea of like a class pass for religion, or like a place to go to learn. It's because it's not about tying yourself to one leader or one modality or one. Just one person can't solve your one all and everything. So to be able, we landed on that word guide that you liked, and also too, this experience was you coaching me through it. And it's interesting because even to consider that word coach, because as a certified coach, we only coach by asking questions. However, that's at times we have specialties, and so the specialties we do. Now that I say that, I will a little bit take back what I said, because oftentimes throughout this, all the time throughout the cleanse, you did have me check in with my own body and say, this is what works for me, and give me suggestions. I'll say the whole entire process was a suggestion. And I opted in from day one, like, this is something that I wanted to do. I would love to do this as a group and as a retreat, and have you lead that. And potentially, if it's big enough, we get big enough, we invite, or if one of these people are local, they come in and speak at the retreat. How amazing. That would be amazing Maesyn. Yeah, that would be amazing to see. Thank you for sharing all of those, and we'll list those experts, because we'll call them the experts in the show notes as well. I want to ask about, so this is me being, humble. And I think sometimes too, as we talked about the people who are questioning or saying, oh, it's unhealthy. I was starting to share that, on the spectrum of people, there's some people who just, you have such a wealth of information and I can geek out with you on it. And people have also commented to me on the past of like, you can be so heady. Oh, you're so, read all these articles and send people. And I can dive into that wavelength with you. But some people, that's too, it's hard to process, when they're processing so much from their work. And they're, learning about, their job and their training skills and their relationships. Like we even said that we wanted to record a short podcast today because, people get distracted. We don't have all that time. Hopefully we're getting you in the car when you're cleaning or something though. So you're like, oh, I got the time. I'm going to go. But it's a lot of information to take in. That again goes back to tribe and how we all need each other, and you don't have to learn it all yourself. And then there's also a subset of people that, where was I going with this? Okay, so there's a subset of people that it's too heady, and then there's a subset of people that, at times when somebody share something like, oh, this, and you're like, yeah. And you have fucking no clue what they're talking about, but you're like, yeah. And sometimes this information is so much that our ego can feel, for lack of better words, I don't even like this word that much, but stupid. Like, I don't know this and I don't want to show my lack of knowledge here. So I'm just going to change the subject or be not interested or say it's unhealthy. So I'm going to ask a question, around this word raw, which seems so simple, of the soup that you made, you had said it was raw, but under my understanding, if it's cooked, it's not raw. It's not cooked. Well, you heated the soup.
No. So every ingredient in the soup is raw. And then I brew a ginger turmeric tea and I let it cool so that it's no longer boiling, so that it's just warm. And then I pour it over all the raw ingredients. So the soup has a slight warmth to it after I blend it in the Vitamix, but it's not cooked and it's not hot. So every ingredient is alive, full of living enzymes. So it's like a whole head of cilantro, a whole head of parsley, raw celery, raw cucumber. None of those ingredients were cooked. None of them. The only thing that was cooked was ginger turmeric tea, and that's a tea. And it was, so those were like spices and like that we were creating a tea out of. And then we waited for it to cool down so that it wouldn't denature any of the living enzymes in the food itself. So everything was still like fully enzymatically active.
I have a confession.
Did you heat it?
I heated it.
I told you you're supposed to eat it raw. It's okay. But I mean, you lost a lot of the nutritional benefit by cooking it. I did mention it like 5 times. I did mention it like 5 times that it's a raw soup.
My brain missed that. See? Okay. Now I got it. Wow. That's, I know it's okay, but it's interesting too of how I missed it. So I wasn't supposed to heat it at all. I was just supposed to have it cold. Fuck.
It's totally okay.
Yeah. See, it's learning in each moment, and okay, all good. Well, now I understand fully. That's why I had the little confusion around that. So let's jump into a little bit of parasites, because I have this box. A parasite zapper on my tummy right now. What's happening?
Okay, well, so again, this is not something that I can speak on as an expert, but I mean, there are many levels to parasite cleansing. So most people have parasites, and I just spent 3 years in Bali where like the sanitation levels are very questionable, pretty bad actually. And so whether it's the water or just eating a raw salad at a restaurant, like they're not sanitizing their vegetables with like hydrogen peroxide or anything that would kill parasites. So most people who go to third world countries, or I should say developing nations, usually get parasites. And even here in America, it is a problem. Like, we live in a world full of many creatures of all sizes, many of which are microscopic.
One of my housemates was telling me yesterday that she was in a lake in Austin and she believes she swallowed some of the water and she was ill the other day, feeling as though she had parasites.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. And there are like brain-eating amoebas in the water here. When the water is stagnant, it's a problem. But in general, we just have to be aware of how to deal with these things. So like they recommend doing parasite cleanses regularly. So I've done really deep dive ones before, which involve like wormwood and andrographis maybe. Like I had a whole list of like 20 different herbs I was taking, clove and neem and, it's late at night right now, so my the recall is not occurring quite as sharply as otherwise hopefully it would. But I used to take a ton of these parasite herbs, and you take them like all day, every day for like 2 months or something, because the life cycle of the parasite, even if you kill the parasite, then it has laid eggs, and the eggs will take a gestational period before they turn into parasites again. So you have to be killing not only the parental parasites, but also it's their spawn, basically, which sounds so creepy. But so that you're actually like poisoning your own body through these herbs, which are poisoning the parasites. But we have large bodies, so we can handle the poisoning process. So I tend to shy away from doing those really intensive herbal parasite cleanses because it's just really hard on the body. Like you're basically poisoning yourself. So I've been exploring other modalities of killing parasites. And when I was in Bali, actually, I could barely get out of bed for like 2 months because I had such a bad parasite infection. And I was like taking all these herbs, nothing was working. And I finally found this biofeedback, like a bioresonance clinic. And they tested me and they were like, yep, you have parasites. And I did one treatment and literally, I could barely drag myself out of bed for 2 months. And literally I went home, passed out for 20 hours, woke up with a splitting headache, a Hertzheimer's reaction, fell back asleep for like another 10 hours and woke up like a brand new person, like as if I'd never been sick. And so I'm a believer in like putting frequency into the body to kill the parasite so that it doesn't like hurt the person and you don't have to take all these poisonous herbs and roots, etc. So my friend, who's a very high level human, purchased this really expensive zapper for me. It's a parasite zapper. I think it was Dr. Hulda Clark, who was an advocate of a thing called a zapper. And so again, I don't know if it works. I can't prove that it works, but there are some data points online that point to it. And I had this dramatic experience with a biofeedback machine. So I'm definitely a believer that you can, send inverse frequencies into your body to kill parasites. And I do it preventatively and as maintenance at this point. And I wanted you to do it. It's not something I can vouch for, but as like definitely working, but I don't think it's definitely not going to hurt you.
Well, it's fun to try it out and to see and to believe that it is working and alleviating my body of the parasites, because I do think part of it is just believing too. If it's almost even going into like, do you believe a 5-day water fast is going to be good for you, or do you not believe it's going to be good to you? Do you believe? I know it's definitely. I'll also even say my teeth are whiter. I've been oil pulling every morning. And again, what was going on in my mouth is pretty much gone. I want to speak, I would love to have you speak to some of the protocols that I rambled off as we started this episode. And some of them were supportive of the aging process. I'm going to say that instead of anti-aging. Some of them are supportive of the aging process. Some are healing, and some of them were for the lymphatic system, and some of them were potentially creating greater clarity. Some of them were spiritual. Can you speak to some of the most important ones and the ones that you enjoy most doing when water fasting?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I said this the first time around, but the most important ones, I believe, are the ones that support the organs of elimination, specifically the lymphatic system, first and foremost. So for that, we had you bouncing on a trampoline. I sent you home with my yoga swing to do inversion therapy and hang upside down. I'm not sure that you did that. Did you find a place to hang it? Okay, so Christina wasn't able to find a stable place to hang the yoga swing. So instead of doing a full inversion, I had her put her feet up against the wall to do like a half inversion therapy at night while she's working on stuff, just to reverse the blood flow, to send the lymph down, just to take the stress off the heart. And it's just like a mini half inversion. Other stuff for your lymph, we had you do body brushing. We had you do bouncing. We had you do, for your kidneys, we had you do a very simple Qigong exercise where you like thwap your fists against your kidneys. So I tried to get you to do something to support every organ every day. So that was one that I would text you to make sure you were doing throughout the day, was the kidney tapping.
And I'll say too, with the dry brushing is new to me. I believe years ago, someone had told me to get a dry brush. I got a dry brush, and then it sat on my nightstand, and I never really did anything with it. And so I went to YouTube and I was Googling, dry brushing routines, and I would turn on a video and essentially follow another person. And I watched 3 a different day, but my morning routine would be, I'd wake up, I'd put the oil in my mouth, swish it around lightly, not vigorously, because it can be painful if you keep going, but for 20 minutes, tongue scrape when I spit it out, because you're dry fasting, or water fasting, so you don't want to swallow the oil. And then while the oil was swishing around, I would be doing the dry brushing. And I saw on the YouTube videos that everybody had their different places that, you should start here on your left arm and move up the body and then circle around the armpit and then move to the other arm and then, underneath the chest and into the heart, but you're always guiding towards the heart. And I would do that about 10 minutes every morning. And that became part of my morning routine. There is a piece of me inside is like, am I going to keep doing that every morning? The oil pulling for sure I will do, because I want to do that for 30 days and see the transformation of my teeth. However, I was in a protocol and a container for this experience. How often do you dry brush?
I dry brush almost every day. It's like a part of, because that's the thing, a lot of these protocols that we do during cleansing, it's like we're establishing new good habits, which ideally we want to carry forward into our daily life so that we don't build up so much toxicity in the first place, so that we don't have to do such a dramatic deep dive. And granted, I don't think a 5-day water fast is that taxing. I mentioned I used to do like 14-day water fast, which I would never do anymore. I think 5 days is a really nice, like, it's not too taxing on the system. It's not too shocking. But like the protocols that we do, ideally we keep a bunch of them. So like to me, I do dry brushing in place of like my morning coffee. And if I still need a little something, I don't do coffee, I do yerba mate. But like I'll still maintain a lot of those practices. Cold showers are another one. So like after I dry brush, I like to cold shower. And between those two, that's like a replacement for coffee. That'll wake you right up in the morning. I also do my shake plate, my vibration plate first thing in the morning. And a lot of the protocols can be, as you said, they can be combined together. Like you can be dry brushing while you're doing your oil pulling, and then you take your cold shower while you're still oil pulling. So a lot of them can be stacked together. Like vagal toning, I had you do some toning for your vagus nerve, just to create a bubble of sound and frequency and vibration throughout your body. Just humming, it's the simplest thing. Just driving down the road, just hum, and then like some facial yoga exercises I was mentioning. I don't know if you did them, but like to just like buzz your lips while you're driving down the road, like just to relax the muscles of the face. Like there's so many little things that you can carry into your daily life, and just like sprinkle them throughout, even if you don't do them every day.
What are the most important spiritual modalities to include that you believe to include within a fasting experience?
Well, it's definitely personal, because each one of us has our own unique connection to the invisible realm. For me, Qigong practices are like how I pray and how I connect to the magic of the density of the molecules around me, and how I energize myself, tuning into the field. So for me, like meditation and Qigong. I also love to dance when I'm fasting, because dancing is a form of prayer for me. And when I dance, I just do movemental Qigong, and I harvest Qi and clear my field and all of that. And then writing intentions, I find to be massively productive. And last night we did a closing circle together where we had you write what you were releasing and what your intentions were, and then we burned it. So that's like a little witchy magic, which actually I wanted to mention. Last time Christina introduced me by saying that I'm witchy, and I had like a lot of resistance to that, because I actually don't really feel that I am. Like, I'm much more oriented towards Qigong and like, Eastern philosophies of like connecting to the invisible realm. But like, certainly we pick and choose elements of different things. But I actually don't really relate to Wiccan tradition or paganism particularly. Like, it's just a flavor that I sprinkle throughout my practices for fun.
Amazing. So if somebody was interested in doing a water fast, and I know we spoke about, and you're open to, as we're creating this, and I actually, there's a little locked group at wedeepen.com in the, where you can access that again from the website, is if you hit the calendar, and there is a little lock section that has not been built out yet on water fasting. So there's a potential that we're building that out if there's interest there. Are you open to working with someone privately to help support them through their journey?
I would be, if it were a fit. Like, it is, you are very responsible and very self-aware. So I think I would have to talk to someone first and see where their consciousness is at. Because if people are coming from a space of like fear, or like, I'm not a doctor, I'm also not interested, I'm also not a therapist. So some people come to fasting trying to escape things. And so I think it would have to be a fit for both of us. I mean, I'm mostly a musician and a writer. This is just a passion that I have had for a long time. And I'm like a big sister. I like to help people. So like, if it was a fit and if they were aligned with my philosophies and I resonated with their intentions and I felt that they were responsible and would actually keep the commitments to what I'm trying to support, then yes, probably. Yeah, I mean, I just like helping people, so it's not something that I would ever like go out and put on a business card. But if someone needs help and support, I would much rather provide that and make sure they have a positive experience and they're not hurting themselves. Because I have fucking 15 years of science experimenting on myself. So I would like to support people if I could.
Well, thank you so much for supporting me through this transformation. It was a transformational experience, no doubt. And I know you're writing multiple books, and one of those books is your recipes. I cannot wait for that recipe book because I love what you eat. That before we went into this podcast, it is evening time here in Austin, Texas. And we had what did we have?
Oh, we were both really tired. So I just made us a little concoction. It was like a little bit of cold pressed yerba mate. And then I heated up a little bit. And then just hemp seeds for creaminess and Irish moss to make it creamy. And then just sweetened with monk fruit and then a little bit of cinnamon. Yeah.
It was so good. So yeah, we woke back up for this podcast. Maesyn, thank you again so much. I feel so good, so light, again, more like myself, and any experience that you can partake in that helps you to feel more like yourself. It was a rebirth, and I do feel rebirth. So I'm super grateful, and I'm super grateful for your willingness to share your knowledge and your experiences vulnerably here on this podcast as well.
Well, you look transformed completely. And that is a testament to the effectiveness of this. I mean, you look so young and vibrant and like chiseled and radiant and youthful. You just peeled years off your face. So anyone who questions water fasting, I just feel like they've never done it, because the results speak for themselves, not only physically, but also energetically. Like, yeah, you like the clarity of mind, all of it. You did so good. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you so much. In closing, is there anything that you would like to share in final words?
Just that I want everyone to be healthy and happy and empowered, and to be attuned to their own inner voice. And that, to me, water, like fasting, is the most rapid path to that level of self-empowerment. So I wish that for all of you.
Me too. Imagine if everybody was super healthy in this world, how we would relate to each other, because our bodies are a temple, and they're a representation of us, and they help us to identify who we are and discover our own self. And when there's things that are blocking them, whether it's junk food, bad food, feeling insecure about body image type stuff, also, just not feeling in yourself, you're more disconnected because your head is at somewhere else. So I second your wish. I'm down for it. High five. Yes. And I want to thank you all for tuning in to this part 2, episode 42, part 2 of Deepen with Christina. I really appreciate it. And I want to remind you again, please do go to wedeepen.com, check out the calendar, and also subscribe, like, follow, rate, share this podcast with a friend, and tune in for the next episode. We release these episodes every Sunday night, later in the evening. So you have it on Monday morning, whatever time zone you're in, it'll be available for you to listen to on Monday morning and Sunday night if you're a late nighter. Okay. I love you all. Take care. Bye.